today's guest is an internationally known keynote speaker, comedian, fight director, stuntman, college professor, artistic director, and action hero. He has traveled extensively throughout the world, speaking to audiences of all ages and backgrounds in 28 countries and over 4,000 live performances. He inspires you to set and reach your maximum potential and awaken your inner action hero. Welcome to the show, John. How are you doing?
I am doing great. I'm really excited to be here. I love the concept of mirror talk, and and I think it's going to be a great conversation.
Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Mirror Talk. I've been, enjoying our conversation before we started recording. Actually, I was like, if we don't stop that conversation, we won't record this episode. So I'm so grateful that you are here today and for making time for me. And I'm looking forward to everything I'm going to learn from you in this episode. So I would love us to, first start by learning more about you and your life story. Like, how did you, you know, how did you, sorry, how did the breaking of your spine at the age of 22 change your life? And how did you change your life from being paralyzed to becoming a stuntman?
Sure. Well, let me back up. So when I was a little kid, I really wanted to be the guy with the sword in his hand. So I always had a stick in my hand, pretending it was a sword, and I was always off playing in the woods, pretending I was Robin Hood, and having a great time. And
Yeah.
then I ended up getting taken to a Renaissance festival when I was in my late teens, and I met two of the top fight directors in the world, and they saw a lot of talent in me as an actor and a combatant, and offered to give me their training for free. So I got their training for free. During this same time, I was going for my black belt in Taekwondo. I was very physically fit, very strong. And in those days, I had long Fabio hair, unlike this hairstyle I have now, which is much more aerodynamic. um, um, and I was really in a good place, health wise, fitness wise. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, why don't you come over and help me unload my van?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." So I drove out to his house, and to me, it was just like one more workout. So it was like, I'm going to help him lift some heavy things, and I'm going to get a muscular pump out of this.
Yeah.
And I climbed up in his van, and he was a professional potter. He made beautiful pottery, and his van was filled with 80-pound boxes of clay. And I got up in that van, and I picked up that first 80-pound box, and I twisted to set it outside of the van, and my spine broke in half. My upper spine disconnected from my lower spine. I collapsed. I was paralyzed. They took me to the hospital. The doctor says, "Mr. Davis, you have spina bifida occulta," which is, I said, basically what I said to him was Gesundheit, because I had no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Basically, what happened was 3 of my vertebrae never formed properly at birth. And so when I did the twisting action with the extra 80 pounds, I literally broke my spine in half at this weak point that I had, that I did not even know I had. He then said to me, he says, "We're not sure you're ever going to walk again. And we're really not, we're definitely positive that even if you do walk, you will never have a physical career. You'll never be able to do the stunt work. You'll never be able to be a fight director. You need to start looking at sedentary careers now, because you're just never going to be able to do that."
Yeah.
And when you're 22 years old and your dreams are to be a stuntman and a fight director and have a very physical career, and a doctor tells you that, you go to some very dark places. And I really felt like I wanted to commit suicide, and I mean, I was in some really bad places. And a buddy of mine showed up at the hospital, and he gave me a book called The Tao of Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee. And which, if you think about it, could have been a cruel joke, because here was the martial artist who had just been told he'd never do martial arts again, giving him a book by the greatest martial artist that ever lived, right? About martial arts. So it's like totally a crazy book. But when Bruce wrote that book, he was in traction in the hospital, had just been told he'd never do martial arts again. And that book, when you read that book, it's less about styles of martial arts and more about the philosophy of martial arts. And there were several things in that book that I discovered and latched onto that got me out of that bed. And one of them was staying very present in the present moment. And the other one was mental flexibility. And when you're in your present moment, you are the person who declares your moment. You're the person who puts your thoughts, words, and deeds into action in your present moment. And in that moment, I had to choose not to believe what the doctors were telling me my future was going to be and what my family was telling me. Because, when you're in a situation like that, your family doesn't want you to get your hopes too high
True.
because they think they're listening to the doctor as well. So they're out of the loving kindness of their heart, they're saying, yeah, you're not going to be a stunt man. They're trying to break it to you. And I had to not take any of their belief because I decided then and there, nothing was going to stop me and that I'm going to become a stunt man and a fight director. So that day I started taking my present moments and I just started stacking them on top of each other. I started by flexing the muscles of my neck and I slowly worked the muscles of my neck and then I worked slowly down my back. I just started flexing the next muscle I could flex: my shoulders, my upper back, my latissimus dorsi muscles, my serratus muscles in the front. And about 30 days in, I was able to flex my hips, which was below the injury.
Yeah.
And then at 6 weeks, I was able to sit up and walk around, go to the bathroom on my own, which didn't happen for a month. Wasn't able to go to the bathroom on my own. At a year, I was back to what I would consider a normal build, but not back to as strong as I was before. But at a year and 6 months, I was back to where I was before. I was just as strong as I ever was. I was going for my black belt in Taekwondo, and I gave myself a gift. And that gift was I climbed up on top of a 3-story tower and I jumped off
Wow.
into a fall pad. And then I went on to do over 4,000, count that again, 4,000 live comedy sword fighting stunt shows all over the world, including the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan. I also have climbed Mount Sinai. I climbed Machu Picchu. I swam in the River Jordan. I swam in the Blue Lagoons of Iceland. I have done everything I have ever wanted to do since because of my back injury. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and it was the most traumatic thing that ever happened to me.
Yes, I really admire your determination to take something so traumatic as that and not allowing it to stop you from achieving everything that you've ever dreamt about or dreamt of. That's really great. That's really amazing. And I also love the fact that you are so determined to overcome the limiting beliefs of others around you and to bring yourself back, to your feet and on track to your purpose fulfillment.
Well, think about this. As I told you before we got on air, I'm a student of spirituality. I study it all.
Yeah.
Buddha says, what you think you become, you create your world. Krishna said, you are the culmination of your thought. The Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. Gandhi says, you must be the change you want to see in the world. Jesus said, whatever you ask in God's name is granted. And Moses said God's name was I am. Now, what is I am? I am is a thought about your present moment. It's not I will be and not I was, it's I am, right? Yes. And so I had to realize that thought, my mere thoughts were going to create my outcome. My mere thoughts were going to give me the lifestyle of being a stuntman and a fight director. And I have worked with major movie stars on films. I have done stunts. I've been on fire. I've done all kinds of crazy, wild, very physical things in my life.
Yeah.
All because of the fact that I took control of my experience. I decided to do what was promised, because I said earlier, Jesus said, whatever you ask in God's name is granted. But the next line is actually the more important line. And the line is, nothing will be impossible for you. And you get to choose. You get to agree. God said, asking it is given. And you got to remember, you're the one asking. And the way you ask is by believing it.
Yes.
And so when someone says to you, you're never going to get out of that bed because you're paralyzed, I can believe what he says, or I can believe what I'm creating.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Yes. You believe what you are creating, actually. Like, you believe what you want for yourself.
Right. Yeah. The interesting thing is that have you ever heard of noetic science?
No. What's that?
Okay. Edgar Mitchell was an Apollo astronaut. And when he was coming back to Earth in the early 70s from a moon mission, he had a transcendental experience as he re-entered Earth's atmosphere. He went out of body. He did all, amazing experience. He took the rest of his life and he created noetic science to try to figure out what are these spiritual experiences and how can I prove them scientifically. And what was interesting is one of the experiments that Noetics eventually did was it actually was able to measure thought waves. So when you think, they're actually able to measure the thought waves. They also discovered that when the person who was thinking focused their thought at a very specific point in space, the thought waves stopped there. They didn't go past that point. And the other part was that they know something's happening at that spot. They can't measure what it is yet, but they can tell something's going on. So the thoughts are creating, right? It's right there in that moment. So as you know, as the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he.
Yeah.
And is, what you think you become.
Yes.
So it's the same language, it's the same concepts. And now science is starting to prove it. Because if you want to look at it from a very interesting scientific perspective, Einstein said that everything that you see around you is pure energy. And if you hold your hand up and you look at your hand, you'll realize that your hand is pure energy. But then it gets weird, because then you realize the eyes that you're looking at that hand with are pure energy. And the air in between your eyes and that hand is nothing but pure energy. So you are literally looking at the image of God, because God is the energy.
Wow.
Right?
Yes.
And we are created in God's image, right? So here you are in this place. And now God said, ask and it is given. Well, how does it give it? You ask with your thoughts and your beliefs, and it is created in the image around you. And that's how it works. And that's what I've discovered in my life, is that I trust that God is true to his word. And I just believe it, and I get everything I've ever asked for. Everything I've ever asked for.
So that's having great faith, like having faith in God. That is going to do everything you ever ask for. Yes.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is, when they talked to Einstein about God, that's one of the things I find most fascinating. Einstein said he believed in the God of Spinoza. And that's an interesting quote. Spinoza was a scientist who believed that the universe was so perfect, and everything that you see is so perfect, that it has to be a higher consciousness. So he believed that God was this larger consciousness that encompasses all. And when Einstein said he doesn't believe in the God of Spinoza, he then followed it up with, I don't believe in a patriarchal or a matriarchal God. I don't believe in a guy with a gray beard sitting on a cloud. I believe that this energy, this pure form energy, that I know just from the sheer perfection of it, has to be designed. It has to be consciously designed. So he believes, Einstein, the biggest science brain in the world, believed that God was this pure energy that we live in.
Yeah.
And so it's an amazing thing once you come to that expression of self, because Jesus said, I am the Son of God. He also said, you are the children of God. And the difference between those two statements is one of them owned his position with God, right?
The Son of
God.
Then
it's an interesting thing, right? And then he follows it up with, greater works than I have done, you will do. So he's basically saying, you have the ability. I'm just showing you your potential. I'm just showing you what you can create into your life. And there's no way that I should have ever been able to do 4,000 sun shows. I never got my back fixed.
Yeah, it's a miracle.
I never had surgeries or anything, but I have done crazy things with my body. Crazy things with my body. Yeah. Some of them I won't mention on your podcast.
Well, I call that a miracle, as in going from being paralyzed, and without undergoing any surgery, you became fixed. You could do crazy things with your body.
Right. And it's true though, because the thing is spirituality and religion diverge in certain points, because, as I said to you before we went on the air, I believe that the idea of a God is too great to be encompassed by one religious thought or one religious doctrine. I think it's in everything. So when I look at my personal journey, I know that if it wasn't for my mom having her master's degree in liturgy and making me go through the 12 years of Confraternity for Christian Doctrine, CCD, right? For those of you who don't know what that meant, right? If it wasn't for that foundation in Christianity, for me to start from, and then when I turned 18, she said, spirituality is a personal journey. Go study and find what you believe. And I went and I took her at her word too. And I went to India and I went all over the world studying spirituality. And I came back with a much broader perspective than just, and what was really interesting at the end of her life, she and I would have long, deep conversations about spirituality and what it really meant. And she said to me that it broadened her faith because she found what I was saying wasn't using the same words, but it was explaining some of the same principles. And so it literally is just a perspective in my mind, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. So this your experience, influenced your creation of the 5F formula.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So can you walk me through this? Yeah.
Let's talk about them because it's interesting. The first of the 5Fs is fearlessness. Fearlessness. And when I ask audiences all over the world what fear is, the first thing they do is go silent. They can't come up with a good definition of what fear is. Yes. And then somebody in the back of the room will say, false evidence appearing real, right? That's the one you always hear for fear.
Yeah.
But when you break down fear scientifically, what you get is an emotional reaction to some future event that may or may not happen with you focused on a negative outcome. You putting your faith in a negative outcome. So by putting your faith in the negative outcome, by putting your belief in the negative outcome, you're creating the negative outcome, right? The people who bypass their fears are the ones who choose to think positively. And it's interesting because what happens is most people get stuck in their fear, and their fear is a struggle, right? In Sufism, which is a brand of Islam, they believe that God is on one side of a veil and we're on the other side of the veil, and the veil is our fear, and that our life is the struggle against the veil, right? So it's got the same fear response. And Buddha says the secret of enlightenment is the eradication of fear. How do you eradicate fear? That's the toughest part. Fear is a primal response. It's a survival response. We have fears because we think we're in a danger, we might get killed, and it comes from our caveman days, from way back. And the interesting thing is fear has several physiological actions that happen. The first thing that happens is when something gets fearful, they go, and they gasp for air, right? Yeah, and if you're a parent, and you've ever seen your kid almost get hurt, I guarantee you, as a parent, you have gone, right.
That's true.
I guarantee it, right?
Yeah,
but interesting thing is, you ask anybody when they're scared, they say, I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I can't breathe, right? Well, it's not that they can't breathe. It's that their body has gone and stored all this air in their lungs so that they can run further and faster. That's what, it's not that they can't get air. It's their body has too much air. And then when you talk to an actor on Broadway or in a movie, even if they forget all their lines, they have a fear response, right? Yes. They're literally trained at that moment to exhale and go, relax all their muscles. And it shuts off the fear response, and all their lines rush right back into their head because it turns the cognitive thinking brain back on. So if you ever find yourself in a negative state, a fear state, and that, think of what I just said though, negativity is fear.
Yeah.
As is fear, so you find yourself in a negative state, you find yourself in a fearful state, take a second to just exhale, right? And then get focused on a new direction. I went to the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan on 6 USO tours. And I asked soldiers in the field, I said, how can you go into a situation where you might get shot at or blown up? And how can you just do that? And they said the first thing they had to do was they had to get together and all go, okay, we're doing this. They'd all exhale. Right? Yeah, we're doing this thing. Yes. But then they also had an objective to focus on, and the positive, successful outcome of that objective. So they got fearlessly focused. There's 2 F's right there for you. Fearlessly focused, right? Yes. Now they're focused on a positive outcome. What you focus on, you will see in your life. I'll give you an example. I love Jeeps. I've had 6 of them in my life. I've got one in my garage right now up on 35-inch tires. Beautiful Jeep, love it. Love my Jeeps. When I drive down the road, I see every Jeep on the road. I see every Jeep next to every house. I see every Jeep out there because my conscious mind thinks Jeep and I see Jeeps, right? If you know negative people, the reason they're negative is because they're focused on negative and their subconscious mind is showing them negative. And so here's the death trap of that. The other job of your subconscious mind is to collect present moment memories and store them as subconscious belief. So now you've got this thing where you're focused on a negative, it's showing you a negative, you're creating a negative present moment, which is stacking into your subconscious belief, which is creating an unending cycle of negativity. That's why negative people are always negative, right?
Yes.
The only way you break this cycle behind you is to start something new, or as they would say in the Bible, be born again. Set your past down and start something new. And the way you do that is you consciously decide to choose the positive and put your thought, word, and deed in your present moment towards a positive outcome. So you got fearlessly focused. You have to believe it. You have to have faith. Fearlessly focused with faith, right? Once you get that faith in there, that faith element, now you're going to trust it. Now, sometimes you can't have faith because what faith really is trust. And trust is developed by results over time. And so what you have to do is go to the next of the 5 F's, which is follow through. You have to start stacking present moments, successful moments, and positive moments until you have enough of them behind you that you can believe that you're creating a positive outcome, right?
Yes.
So you got fearlessly focus with faith, follow through.
True.
Right?
Yes.
And then the last one. The last one is the one that trips everybody up. And that's flexibility. Because as you're going for your goal, something is always going to show up that seems contrary to what you're trying to achieve. And in that moment, you can choose to be stopped, or you can choose to say, oh, okay, I have to deal with this to get to my goal. Because as I said to you earlier, I see Jeeps because I'm focused on Jeeps.
Yes.
But if I'm focused on the positive goal and my subconscious mind shows me an obstacle, it's not showing it to me to stop me. It's showing it to me to say, okay, deal with this, solve this problem, and you'll get your goal. You have to never take your eye off the end target. And you have to realize that anything that comes up between you and your end target is just something that's being presented to you to deal with. And because if you allow yourself to believe that you're stopped, you've created a new faith element, which is how you ask God for your outcome. So you're putting that faith in stopping, so you're stopped. And it seems so simple, when you think about it this way. And I think that's the problem with it. It's so simple that we can't grasp it. We want to make it harder than it is. The honesty comes down to make each present moment as positive and in alignment with the outcome you want as you can until you get the thing you want.
Yes. So just staying on track all the time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and if you're a person of faith, realize that present moment is the I am moment. And when Moses asked God what his name was, Moses said, I am.
Yes.
I mean, the burning bush said, I am. So God's name is I am. So when you say I am achieving, you're getting it, right? The issue that people have is they take this I am moment and God gives them exactly what they put after I am. And a lot of people say, I am wanting, I am needing, I am hoping, I am trying. And God says, okay, have some want, have some need, have some hope, have some try, right? But if you can change those words to, I am creating, I am enjoying, I am surviving, I am a stunt man, I am a fight director. I'm going to work with Brad Pitt. I'm going to work with David Duchovny. I'm going to, I did all that, right? Yes. I moved to Ohio to be close to my son. And I got here, I said, okay, well, I'm still going to do my fights and stuff, but, I should find a job here local. I am going to be a college professor, right? I literally said that. I am going to be a college professor.
Yes.
Now, my degree was in architecture, but all of my life experience was in stunts and fight work and theater and film. So what happened? A month after I got here, I got hired to do fights for a play up in the Cleveland Playhouse, right? And it was my favorite year. And I went in and taught the fights. And the guy who was the lead of the play, really amazingly talented man, Matthew Wright. And he says, at the end of the play, he says, "You're a really good fight director. I don't think I've seen anybody as good as you in this area." He says, have you ever thought about doing a master class at a college? Well, what a master class is a one-time deal, one class. I said, I'd love to do a master class. He says, well, I'm the dean of theater at Oberlin College. How'd you like to come out and do a master class? So I said, great. So I went out and did a master class. At the end of the master class, he says, I offered you the master class because I wanted to see how you taught. How'd you like a semester? And then I taught there for 6 years.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. Wow. Yes.
So I am going to be a college professor. I am a college professor. That's that I am statement went out to God. God gave it to me in exactly the way it was supposed to happen. That's why I've been able to achieve everything I've ever wanted in my life, is because I understand that my thoughts, words, and deeds go out to the source, and the source always gives me exactly what I'm focused on, be it positive or negative.
Yeah.
Because it didn't say ask and it's given if it's positive. It says ask and it's given, period.
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
ask and shall be given unto you. Yes.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And there's no part in there where it says ask and if you believe in Jesus, it's given to you. It didn't say that.
No.
It says ask and it's given. But the way we ask is the belief in our present moment.
Yeah. I really love. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure. Go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
No, I just want to say I really love your 5F formula. Like, I am fearless, I am faithful. No, sorry. I am fearless, I am focused, I am a person of faith, I am following through, and I am flexible to achieve my goals.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is they're all based in the fight or flight response and spirituality. And when I teach this in my corporate speeches, one of the things that I do is I pick up the most timid person I can find in my audience, and I bring her to stage. And it's always a woman because it always just seems to work out that way.
Yeah.
And I bring the woman to the stage, and she's very timid. She's afraid to be in front of that giant audience, right? Yeah. But in 5 minutes time, she will learn to crack a whip and hit targets out of my hand with the whip. Now, how'd that happen? Well, it happened because I understand I can mitigate her fears just by the way I deliver my information. I can give her positive reinforcement and show her that she's capable all the way through. Whenever she has a fear that comes up, I just instantly negate it. So, for instance, she walks on stage, she's afraid of being in front of that audience because she's really afraid of them, what they're going to think of her. And before she can get too deep into it, I say, "Isn't she a rock star?" And they cheer for her. So I've just negated that fear, right?
Yeah, yes.
By the time we get to the point where I'm holding a target and she's already cracked the whip, I say, "I promise you're not going to hurt me." I don't know whether she's going to hurt me or not, actually, but but if I say, "I promise you're not going to hurt me," and she puts faith in that, she's not going to hurt me. Let me tell you the results of that process. I use the 5 F's for the entire process. The results of that process are I have done that hundreds and hundreds of times, and I have never been hit. And the target always has been.
Wow. Okay, why?
What?
You said
why?
The target has always been hit. Like when lady, for example, shoots the sword, she hits the target. The whip, yes. She hits the targets. Oh, okay, yeah, I get it.
So she's cracking a whip like Indiana Jones.
Yes.
And she's hitting a target that I'm holding in my hand.
Ah, yeah. Okay, I get it. Yes.
All right. So, and she does it all in 5 minutes. And it's all literally by taking her through the process of these 5 F's, which is the process of creation in my mind.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that's really that's awesome. That works wonders, actually. It asks our mind for success. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it, for me, like I said, I've achieved everything I've ever wanted. And it's because I use these principles in everything I choose to create. So right now I'm in the process of creating a beach house because I'm 57 years old, and 7 years or 8 years, I want to retire to the beach. So I'm in the process right now of manifesting that beach house, and I see things already in motion for that. Wow. Things are already falling into place to get that house. but it literally is belief. It comes down to your faith.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it, and then put your three creative elements into play:
Mm-hmm.
thought, word, and deed. Yeah. Think it, say it, and do it. And the middle one, say it. The book of Genesis starts with, in the beginning is the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Your word goes out, and it is with God, and God creates it in the image.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's basically what that means in my mind,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So my thoughts, words, and deeds go out into this energy and it's formed around me. Now, how does it form? It may form around you like it did for that college professor thing. It formed around me by me being put in the right place
At the right time.
to meet the right person
Mm-hmm.
at the right time.
Mm.
You know, when 9/11 happened here in the States, the first victim that came out of the Twin Towers was the fire department chaplain. And when they went into his wallet, he had a card in his wallet that was laminated, and it says, "Take me where you want me to go. Show me who you want me to meet. Tell me what you want me to say, and help me stay out of the way." Right?
Yes.
So it literally comes down to that place of putting your faith in what you're trying to create, but also putting your faith in it's going to come to you. And everything he said there was like, show me this. And so God shows him. Tell me what you want me to say. Puts the words in his mouth. Have you ever had the experience when you're talking to somebody and you just say the right thing at the right time?
Yeah. It happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's God talking through you.
Mm.
That's the way it works, right? That person needed that at that time, and you just happened to say the right thing at the right time
Mm.
because you are part of the source.
That's awesome. So, I'm trying to learn this. Earlier you talked about eradicating fear, and
Uh-huh.
from your experience, from jumping off, high heights, for example, or climbing up mountains. How do you eradicate those fear in order to perform those actions that you performed?
How do I break the fear?
Yes.
Well, the first thing I do is I exhale.
Yeah.
Right. And then,
Yeah.
I once again, I get very focused on what I'm trying to achieve.
Mm.
When you're standing on top of a big, tall tower and you're getting ready to jump off,
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you're not focused on the tower and
Mm.
you're not focused on the ground next to the pad you're going to land on.
Mm.
You're focused on the pad, right? You focus on where you're going to put your butt at the end of this jump, right? You're focused on the positive outcome. So it comes back to the fearlessly focused, right? To eradicate my fears, I literally had to do those two things every day. I had to exhale and become very resolved in my faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to focus on the positive outcome.
Yeah.
And then I had to take the actions. I had to put
Yes.
my thoughts, words, and deeds into play. It's the
Mm.
same thing. The hard part is like I said, people really want to make it hard. They want to come up with all these processes and solutions where it really is as simple as what I'm saying. Exhale and get focused on a positive outcome and take an action towards it. The thing is, the reason people get freaked out is because they're sitting in their present moment and they're looking at the future at this possible outcome.
Mm.
And it's daunting and sometimes it's scary. I'm on the side of a cliff climbing up, and this possible outcome is I could fall to my death, right?
Mm.
But the interesting thing is the future is malleable,
Yeah.
and you set goal. It's just a place where you set goals for your next present moment.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you get that goal, you'll never go to next Thursday and have it
No.
because you're not going to jump to the future, right? And you can't go to the past either.
No.
What happens is you do the things here in the I am moment that are positive and in alignment with the outcome you're looking for.
Mm.
And it comes to you and surrounds your present moment experience.
Mm.
Because when you experience it, it's going to be in the here and now, not in the future.
Mm.
And so it literally comes down to just stacking present moments successfully and positively.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
I am is not I will be, or I
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
right? It's I am. Stay right. Do you know what amen means?
No, what does it mean? It's
No, almost nobody does, and I'm so glad.
confirming what's confirming like
Okay.
affirming what has been said, right? That's what it means.
Right. Well, it actually means so be it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Means It's done right now,
Mm.
not in the future, not in the past. Amen is a very present moment word.
Mm.
Everything is present moment because God is the great I am. I am that I am.
Yes.
That was the actual response to Moses, right?
Yeah.
I am that I am.
Yeah.
And so if you can put your I am into play and say, my present moment is positive, is successful,
Mm.
and I don't even consider the fact that I'm paralyzed.
Mm.
I don't consider the fact that I'll never be a stuntman. You can't allow that faith to permeate your belief, because if you allow that to permeate your belief, you're creating that into your experience. I had to say, no, you're wrong, and I am a stuntman, and I did it.
Mm.
I mean, I truly went on and became a stuntman,
Yeah.
and I've done more sword fights than most actors will ever do in their life, right? Ever
Yeah.
do in their life,
Yes.
and I did it with a bad back.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. So using everything we've talked about so far right now, like with the 5F formula, staying focused, like being positive, like being flexible and trying to achieve one's goal in life. How do we then address, the negative people in our lives or around us, when trying to be positive and always focused on our goals? How do we address those negative influences or people around us?
Well, the interesting thing about that is that is their choice. Number one, you have to realize that if they're negative, they can choose that.
Mm.
But the best way to change that perspective
Mm-hmm.
is to be the positive in their life. And I'll give you an example. When I was I was at a restaurant one time,
Yeah.
and the waitress literally walked up to our table and said, "I'm having a bad night, and I'm sorry. It's going to reflect in the service."
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Now, the guy that I was with was instantly mad
Yeah.
because he was like, oh, he wanted good service.
Mm-hmm.
I said, this is exactly how this went too. I said, I'm so sorry you're going through that. Why don't you sit down and I'll get you some dinner?
Wow.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she looked at me and she started laughing. I said, I'll handle the rest of your tables too. Don't worry about it. Right. Now,
Really? Okay.
she
Yeah.
laughed. She thought it was funny, right?
Yes.
The more positive I kept throwing at her, the more she laughed.
Mm.
The more I got her to laugh, the more she hung out at our table.
Mm.
By the end of the night, I was watching her laugh at other people's tables. Now, when she first walked up to us,
Mm.
her belief was she was having a bad night. I became the example of a good night,
Mm.
right? And what in Hinduism, the bodhisattva. You know what a bodhisattva is?
No, what's that?
A bodhisattva is someone who has reached a level of enlightenment that they could go to the next level, but chooses to stay here to be an example and to change people's vibrations.
Mm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
they choose you get to be the bodhisattva in everybody's life around you. And here's the quickest and easiest way to do it. You're looking at me right now. You've probably noticed that I smile a lot.
Yes.
I smile a lot.
Yeah.
And it's just my natural state. I feel like I should be smiling because I always feel good, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I walk through the streets, I'm smiling.
Mm.
And I'm always amazed when I walk past someone and they do a double take and then smile at me. Right?
Yeah.
It shocks them to see someone smiling,
Mm.
first of all, but then they smile back because it's infectious.
Mm.
Positive energy is hundreds of times more powerful than negative energy. And when I look at negative energy, I look at it from a metaphysical perspective. Is that the Apostle John said, God is love, and the opposite of love is fear.
Mm.
It's not hate, because hate is just a product of fear.
Yeah.
So if the opposite of love is fear, then the best thing that I can do is be love.
Mm.
And so I just go through life loving everybody I'm with and loving everybody I meet. And I literally have traveled to 30 countries around the world. And I have been to so many countries and met so many wonderful people, many of which I didn't even speak the same language with.
Mm.
But we all just laughed and got along because and I'll tell you an interesting story. I went to Egypt in the year 2000, and when I traveled through Egypt, everywhere I went, I was meeting new friends, didn't speak the language at all, joking, laughing, having a fun time. And finally, it culminated. I went all the way out to the middle of the Sinai Peninsula to Mount Sinai. And I got to Mount Sinai, and everywhere I go, it's just been an amazing experience. Everybody I talked to, I became friends with, and they treated me like a prince everywhere I went. And I got to Mount Sinai and I checked into my hotel. I made friends with the manager as I checked in. And when you climb Mount Sinai, you start at 1:00 in the morning. And the reason you start at 1:00 in the morning is because if you start at 1, you get to the top just before sunrise. So now you're sitting on the top of Mount Sinai watching the sunrise. How cool is that, right?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful. So 1:00 in the morning, I start climbing. I'm an hour and a half into my climb. It's now 2:30 in the morning. In the darkness on the side of Mount Sinai, I hear, John, John, which, by the way, being on the side of Mount Sinai in the dark and hearing your name called in the darkness is kind of weird.
it could be God is calling you or something.
What the? But it wasn't God. It was it was the manager of the hotel running up the mountain to give me a coat because he thought I'd be cold.
Oh, wow.
Because that's how I was treated, right? But that's how I treated him too. The next day I came down from the mountain, and right at the base of the mountain is St. Catherine's Monastery. And I'm walking through this beautiful Byzantine monastery, all the Greek Orthodox beards and the incense and the beautiful. I'm walking through and I hear this guy say, "Hey, are you American?" I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "I'm American too." He says, "Have you been having problems since you've been here?" I said, "No, everybody's treating me like a prince." He says, "Everywhere I go, people want to fight me." 5 minutes later, I wanted to kick the guy's butt. Because that's what he was putting out. You know, what you reap, you do sow.
Yes.
You know, what you put out into the world, you are getting what you're putting faith in. People wanted to fight him because he believed they wanted to fight him. I got a loving response because I believed in loving them first. Yes. And I believed in their innate goodness. And so I got a loving response. That's really the way the world works, is, you know, what you put out, you are creating. And what you put out in your belief of achievement, same thing. If you want to be successful in life, you want to take your business to the next level, start choosing to believe you're going to be successful. Start choosing to believe you're going to meet the monetary number you're trying to get to. You know, you want to have a loving relationships. The number one thing you can do is start loving yourself fully, so that you can find somebody who will love you fully, because you can't choose to change yourself out of fear to be something for somebody else. If you want someone to love you unconditionally, they have to know who you are, right? Right. So yes. You have to be you. So you have to choose to be the love in the world, and that love is just pure positivity. You know, you can look at that love from a very esoteric term or a romantic term. It's just pure vibrational positivity. Yes. And if you take pure vibrational positivity and put it out in the world, it's going to come back to you 100-fold.
Yes, yes. Wow. See, I really find your story and your life so inspiring, like so encouraging, also, you know, full of faith, full of, you know, fearlessness, full of, you know, focus and flexibility. That's really awesome. And I find it really, you know, inspiring, as I said earlier, that, you know, you moved from being paralyzed to, you know, and to becoming a comedy sword fighter, and as well as a corporate action hero. So I would love you to like explain this to me. What does a comedy sword fighter? And what is a corporate action hero? What are these two terms?
Okay, so the comedy sword fighter. I started my sword fighting career at Renaissance festivals, and I put together a show called Hack and Slash. It was a sword fighting comedy show, and I was a knight, and my partner was a squire, and we wore these funny costumes. And for those of you guys who don't know what a Renaissance festival is, basically what that means is, for many years I was wearing tights and living in the woods, doing a comedy show. Yeah. That comedy show took me to the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan, because people from the Pentagon saw the show and asked us to do USO tours. Now, the corporate action here is an interesting animal, because at this point in my career, I was 21 years into doing my comedy sword fighting show after my back injury. And I was discovering that I was enjoying the time off of the stage more than I was on the stage. And the reason I was enjoying it off the stage more is because when I was off the stage, I would sit out in the audience and talk to people.
Yeah.
And I was saving marriages. I was helping them achieve more in their life because of what I learned from my back injury. And so I was able to take these 5 Fs and those responses and have people break free of their limiting beliefs. I have one lady that I worked with who was agoraphobic. She was afraid of leaving her house. And after working with her for a couple of years, she took a solo trip to Africa and climbed a mountain and hung out with gorillas.
Wow.
Right? From Akron, Ohio, or Canton, Ohio, right? She left her home and left our continent and went to Africa and hung out with gorillas. You know, that's just someone who wouldn't leave her house. So by doing that, I was feeling the power of that. And then I said, well, I want to be able to do that for people, but I also want to play with whips and nunchucks and comedy and do all that cool stuff that I do over here too. Yeah. So I created the Corporate Action Hero. And now what I do is I go into corporations where people are the most fearful and the most limited in their belief. And I awaken their interaction hero by showing them what they're capable of, by using the lady with the whip on stage and, you know, having people sit in chairs and lay back on each other and take all the chairs away so they're suspended off of each other, doing all kinds of fun comedy routines, but layering in these 5 Fs so that they can use them in their life. What happens is at the end of those events, the people that have come on stage have had a life-changing experience because they've just experienced something they've never done before. Yeah. And the people who watch them on stage know that those people were timid. They were the people who they couldn't believe did what they just did. Yeah. So they also had a life-changing experience because they said, well, if they can do it, so can I. So I'm able to go into an environment and have them break through their adversities and start to achieve more very quickly.
Yes. Well, as a stuntman and comedy sword fighter, I've crazy things happened to you before that caused you to cause your faith to waver, for example, or caused you to be a little bit fearful or forget about the 5F formula. Like any crazy thing that could have happened that like made you for a split second to be scared or something or to be fearful.
Oh, before my accident, my father was an alcoholic and emotional abuser, and I was the one of his 7 kids he didn't like. So I had very low self-esteem. I was an extreme introvert. And actually, when I finally met those 2 fight directors and they started giving me positive reinforcement, that's what changed my life because I saw 2 men who were doing things that I wanted to do, who saw talent and gave me positive reinforcement. So in my life, there's always moments. And I'll tell you where a lot of the moments where people get into their fears are usually in the moments of wanting to be loved or be in some sort of romantic situation. Yeah. They want to have a boyfriend. They want to have a girlfriend. A lot of times their fears of their past will come up at that point because all of the lack of belief in self shows up. Now, what is that lack of belief? It's the fear of not being loved, right? And so your job is to recognize fear for fear, no matter what it's afraid of. Now, if I'm afraid of it not being loved, my job is to, number one, exhale, right?
Yes.
And then put my mind on focus. And now, I've been, I'm going to make you laugh here. I have a nickname, and that nickname is Triple X.
Triple
X. Triple X. The reason it's called Triple X is because I have 3 ex-wives. Right?
Yeah.
The lesson that I learned from my 3 ex-wives was I can't change myself for somebody else. If they're asking me to change myself to be with them, they don't love me. They love their vision of what I could be. And so if someone's going to love you for who you are, then you have to be you fully. I often, when I'm working with somebody who wants to find a new relationship, I'll say, really, well, what are you doing to do that? And they say, well, I'm going to the bars, I'm doing this, I'm hanging out at the clubs. And so I say, well, let me ask you a couple of questions. Before you started looking, were you somebody who liked to hang out in bars and go to clubs? And they're like, oh, no, that's not. I said, so you're going to a place with people who like to hang out in bars and go to clubs to meet somebody that'll love you, but you don't like that place. So why don't you I said, what do you like to do? And they say, well, I like to go bike riding in the park. I like to go hiking. I said, why don't you join some clubs that go hiking and bike riding? why don't you start doing the things that you do love to do
Mm,
and just start a conversation with people? Don't look for a relationship.
mm,
Just start a conversation with people. Find somebody who likes you for you. And as Nietzsche would say, the greatest way to have a successful relationship is to foster the friendship first. Because if you can be a friend with your partner, that can last forever. But the second you're not a friend anymore, your relationship's done. And I know that because I've had 3 of them go like that.
yeah, that's so deep. Yeah, yes. Wow. So I'd love to. That's really touching. Actually, like you have to first. You don't have to change yourself for anyone. That's what I got from what you said now. And then you have to, like, foster this friendship with them. Like, let them love you for who you are, love them for who they are. And then if you're
Right,
compatible that way, then you could have a friendship that could last forever.
right. And
Yes.
if you're the one putting the conditions, and that's what I'm saying. If they have to change, you have just put a condition, which means your love is conditional,
Mm,
right? And
yeah.
if they're not going to change, they're not going to change. And if they do change, they're not going to like it because they were already being who they are.
True.
So you need to make sure you understand that you also can be the person putting conditions on people
That's true.
and love them for who they are. And if that person's not right for you, then it's okay to move on
Mm,
and find the next person who is right for you.
yes. Yes. That's right. So I'd love to go back to you being a stuntman now, like just to digress to change the whole topic. So from a stuntman's perspective, what's the difference between a superhero and an action hero?
That's a great question. Now, an action hero
Mm,
is an ordinary individual who creates extraordinary results,
mm.
right? A superhero is a person who wears their underwear on the outside of their pants, has been radiated by some sort of goo, and has superpowers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But here's the interesting thing about superheroes: superheroes are really slackers
Mm,
because when a superhero does a super thing, they're not really getting out of their box, they're doing what's expected. But an action hero, on
mm,
the other hand,
mm.
they're ordinary people who are creating extraordinary results in service of others.
Yeah,
So that's the main difference between the two. Is
yeah.
one of them has bad fashion sense and superpowers, and one of them is an ordinary individual who has shown a superpower.
Yes. That means every one of us can be action heroes then.
Everybody can, and everybody is.
Mm,
They're already creating their experience.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just a matter of becoming conscious about your creation.
yes.
Because a lot of if you feel that you've been a victim your entire life
Mm,
and you're seeing that in your life, that's because you're creating that into your life.
mm.
If you feel like you are, have you ever known anybody who just always knew that the money was going to be there no matter what? You ever notice they always seem to have money
Yeah,
because they believe that,
yes, yes.
right?
I can,
The
I,
people who struggle for money
mm,
always struggle for money
mm,
because they believe that.
mm, true. So can you teach me how to awaken my inner action man? I'm sorry, action hero.
Well, first of all, start taking these 5 F's. Now, I'm going
Yeah.
to give your audience a gift,
Mm,
right? And that gift is the 5F workbook. It helps you go through your process. Now, let me go back up here. I said gift. That means free, which means I'm not going to charge anything for it. I'm also, get this, I'm not even going to take an email address.
wow, that's
I'm
good.
just going to give you a link to go download this. Today is about giving value rather than taking something from somebody.
Yeah.
Today's about value. And
Mm,
the link is www.corporateactionhero.com/gift, GIFT. Now, if you go to my website, you're not going to find it there. You have to use the link to get to it because
yeah.
this is just for podcast audiences.
Wow, that's
So,
awesome.
but it's the 5F workbook. Now, here's something else that's cool. On that page, there's going to be several videos on there that will reinforce the 5Fs. But if you want to awaken your interaction hero,
Mm,
start putting the 5Fs into action.
mm,
Because if you start putting the 5Fs into action, start
yes.
stacking your present moments
Mm,
successfully and positively,
mm,
you're going to start to see the results, which are going to give you that trust, which is going to give you the faith, which is going to give you the outcome. You got to remember that today's choices are tomorrow's outcomes. So
mm.
make your choices wise.
Yes. Make choices wise. Yes. But yeah, from your experience, like from everything you've experienced so far in life, how do you make the right choices? Are there ways you
Uh,
can say?
Well, we all have this innate sense of what feels good and what feels bad,
Mm,
right? Do I feel this is a good thing? Do I feel this is a bad thing,
yeah,
right?
yes.
And you make the things that make you feel good,
Mm,
right? Now that doesn't mean drop off into addictions, because a lot of people will start to eat an excessive amount of pizza because it makes them feel good,
mm,
right? That's
that's
what I'm
true.
talking about.
Yeah.
Do what is right, you know, do what is right. And right can be many things for many people, but do the things that are positive and outcome will give you life. Best thing I would say is, first of all, set a goal, but
Mm,
realize that goal is just a daydream until you put action behind it in your present moment.
yeah.
Set a positive goal. If and don't set a goal like, say, I want to be financially secure, and I never want to struggle with debt again. Well, that is a statement that says I'm struggling with debt now.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than even think about struggling with debt now, think about I am creating that. I often tell people I don't believe in affirmations.
Mm,
And they say, well, why not? I said, because I believe in the present moment very clearly. And the word of affirmation means that I'm shoring something up that's not solid,
yeah.
right? I'm putting bracers, I'm affirming it to make sure it's going to stay up.
Mm,
I believe in declarations.
okay.
I believe I just declare what I'm going to get and believe I'm going to get it. And I get it.
Mm, mm,
That's why I get everything I've ever asked for in my life,
mm,
you know? And so when it comes down to wanting to achieve something in your life, it really comes down to you declaring it. When you're going back to affirmations, if I was a 400-pound man,
mm.
I cannot literally believe when I say the words, I am a thin man, because I still can't see my shoes. right?
Yeah,
Right?
yes.
I can't see my shoes. But I can in this moment say, I am eating in a more healthy way. I am walking an extra 100 paces today.
Mm,
I am enjoying the weight coming off of my body.
mm,
Those are very present moment and active statement towards a positive outcome. I
mm,
am a thin man can't ever come to fruition because you can't believe it.
mm.
It's not of a believable statement. You can't put faith behind that because you can't see your shoes. It's the
Yes.
same thing with any aspect of your life. Break it down to the smallest things.
Mm-hmm.
I am creating a new experience.
Mm,
I am becoming a stuntman. I am
mm.
becoming a stuntman is very different from I am a stuntman,
Yeah,
right? I am
that's true.
becoming, I am creating, I am enjoying.
Mm,
Active present moments, words. Your life is motion. And motion, if you think about water as it's flowing downhill, when it's in motion, it's full of oxygen, it's full of life, it's very healthy water.
mm,
That same water, when it comes to the bottom of the mountain, it goes into a puddle and becomes stagnant,
yeah,
becomes poisonous,
yeah.
and the bugs start to lay their eggs in it.
Mm,
It becomes a mire, right?
yes.
And the only thing that changed between coming down that hill and going to that puddle is motion,
Mm,
right? So you have to be constant motion. If you achieve a goal, your job is to create another goal.
mm,
Your job is to move to the next thing,
yes.
because if the second you decide to stop, you're done.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So now I have this goal in mind. I'm putting actions into it, and I'm making declarations. But just like fear, there are also like these self-defeating beliefs that come through our mind. So how can we break out of these self-defeating beliefs?
Self-defeating beliefs are just another fear. Just
Hmm.
literally just label it as fear. And
Ah.
actually, self-defeating beliefs is the fear of not being loved,
Hmm.
right? Because somebody in the past said, well, you can't do that.
Hmm.
And you really wanted their acceptance when they said it.
Yeah.
And so you really wanted their love,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And it's interesting because I say, for the most part, there's really only one fear, and it is the fear of not being loved in some form.
Hmm.
And people associate, you know, a monetary number with success, but what they really are saying is my power is in my success, and my power is where I feel loved, right? And
Yeah.
people say, well, how is the fear of death the fear of not being loved? Well, there's an entire soliloquy in Shakespeare called To Be or Not to Be, right? And the whole premise of that speech is that the guy won't commit suicide because he's afraid that the other side is not going to be a loving experience.
Mm.
He's afraid it's going to be a negative experience.
Yes.
So the fear of death is afraid of hell, afraid of the negative.
Mm.
And so self-defeating talk, it's the same process, 5 F's. When you find yourself in a negative state, which is self-defeating talk, exhale, refocus. Because your subconscious mind is altered by its habits. Okay. And self-defeating talk is a habit. It's a habit of lack of self-confidence.
Yes.
And that fear is just like every other fear. You have to go, no. And over time, they say 21 days creates habit. If you can do this for 3 weeks, just keep catching what you're saying. And this is the key. Catch what you are saying about your present moment, right? Because that self-defeating talk is you saying something about your present moment.
Yeah.
Right? I can't do this. Oh my God, I'm not smart enough. Self-defeating talk. All that is I am, quote, quote, not smart enough. I am not able. I can't means I am not able, right? And Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And the reason he said that is because it's where you put your faith and belief. And so you have to realize of the 5 F's, they're not linear. You're constantly readdressing your fears because it is the number one most prevalent thing that's going to hinder you from getting your goal.
That's true. That's true. That's why I encourage positive mirror talk also. Like, there are a lot of these self-defeating beliefs that we have from people that we've looked up to, like that tell us, oh, you can't do this or you can't achieve this. So me looking at myself in the mirror and telling myself, no, you can do it, or no, sorry, yes, you can do it, or you can achieve this. No, that is a lie. For example, that's the way I'm able to maybe reverse that those beliefs, those bad thoughts or negative thoughts in my mind, and
shift into positive. Look in that mirror and say, I am becoming a stuntman. I am becoming a successful actor. I am finding a loving soulmate.
Yes. Just as you said, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.
So on your website, I was reading about the awesome works that you've done and the awesome way you give back to the society. Like, for example, you helped to fund the American Cancer Society, and you also have a lot of awesome works that you do, like to give back to people. Like you said, giving value all the time. So can you tell me more about what you do with your corporation, what you do with corporate action hero, and how can people be involved also in what you do?
Well, the word action means create motion, start momentum, or to do something. And the word hero is someone who achieves extraordinary results in service of others. And so I believe wholeheartedly in living my life that way.
Yeah.
And if I can find some way to leverage my platform to help somebody else, I do it. So when I did the USO tours, I very specifically asked us when we were in Africa to take us to the local orphanage so we could do something for them. When we were in Afghanistan, I said, take me to the hospital so I can work with the Afghan children. When I was, I had my show was very popular, my hack and slash show. And so, well, we have this giant hack and slash show. How can we leverage it? And so we put together the biggest charity event in Baltimore, which funded over 16 global clean water projects. It collected over 20 tons of food and clothing for local homeless shelters. It sent 2 kids to Make-A-Wish to Disneyland with Make-A-Wish.
Yeah.
And it was like, we just kept leveraging. So what I do now is, since COVID, of course, not much has been going on because everybody's taking care of their own stuff. But for me, the way you find out about me and the things that I'm doing really is go to corporateactionhero.com. And I have a video blog on there, a vlog. And then I have that vlog, by the way, is a piece of daily motivation. So if you just want a couple minute piece of motivation every day, that vlog is it. If you don't want to go to my website to get those videos, are all on YouTube under Corporate Action Hero. I put them on Twitter. I put them on Facebook. You search Corporate Action Hero, you'll find me everywhere. And you'll see what I'm doing because I'm very vocal about what I'm doing at the time.
Yes, and also you have your podcasts. Also, one of them is the inaction hero, for example, and
The interaction hero, yes.
yeah, inaction. Yes, and you also
No,
have the
no, not the in action hero, the inner action hero.
inner action hero. Sorry.
That's an entirely different podcast. The inaction. That's the one where I sit on a chair and I just drink the whole time.
Thanks so much for the correction. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
And if any of your people are interested in my more spiritual podcast, it's called Spirit Cafe Podcast, and it's me and one other person discussing all whole range of spiritual thoughts and topics. And we'd love to get, if anybody's interested in spirituality, give us some topic ideas, because we're always looking for new things to see what we believe about them.
Yes, that's awesome. I'm going to place all of these links in the show notes for this episode. So everyone, I will encourage everyone to click on them, to check them out, especially the videos. The videos are really nice. I was watching them on your website, on YouTube, embedded videos on your website, and just 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, very short, but filled with, words of motivation and for success. That's awesome.
That's the goal, is to give, just because nobody wants to watch an hour-long thing every day, but just a couple of minutes to go, oh, this is something for me to ponder today, something to think about today.
Yes.
That's kind of the goal.
Yes. So as a last question, I would love to know, like, if you could reflect back, what would you say is the moment in your life that was pivotal in all that you've achieved? Was it on the sick bed, or what was that moment?
The greatest moment of my life was the moment my back broke. And because I saw so many different things in that moment, from that moment spawned everything else the rest of my life, my 5 Fs and my achievements. But also when my back broke, I suddenly saw the love from my friends and family surround me. I saw so much more how the world thought of me, and so how people cared. And that moment when the back broke, everybody thinks, oh my God, that must have been terrible. At the moment, sure it was. But when I think back, everything else, the rest of my life, was colored by that moment. And the reason I have done everything I've ever done is because of that moment. So that is the key pivotal moment of my life.
Wow, that's awesome. And that's, redirected your life, or made you, become who you are today. And we are thankful for that.
I'm pretty thankful for it too. I'm also glad that I'm still walking.
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much, John, for everything